Hello, 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 fight fans across the nation and the world. We're coming back to you like we always promise with another edition of Fights Unwrapped. With me, my guest tonight is a newcomer to the UFC scene. We have Ethan Carbone over there. Say hello to the good people, Ethan.
What's up?
All right. So, to start the show, just so you guys know, Monique will be joining us a little bit later. She has some other things she has to get done first, so she will be here. And we got a ton of headlines and a hell of a Vegas Fight Night card to go over, including some of the best prelims I have ever seen on a Vegas card. It's absolutely insane. But before we get to that, we'll just start our plugs. You guys can always follow me at Alec Carr MMA on Twitter for all my outrageous, crazy opinions. Basically on the entire world, not just the UFC. I talk about football, I talk about basketball, I talk about movies, I talk about Star Wars, I talk about politics. And what I love is when people at me and disagree with me. So please disagree with me on Twitter because we will talk back and forth for a long time. Ethan, do you want to give any plugs of your content, where people can find you, what shows you're doing?
For sure. My Twitter is right here at Ethan_Carboni. I do a lot of work at ATR Madness for our Creative Madness podcast. Number one for your college basketball needs. Have interviews coming out, honestly, 2 to 3 times a week for the month of July.
Awesome, Ethan. And then just to finish our plugs, guys, please follow Fights Unwrapped on Twitter. We're giving all kinds of fight announcements. We give show recaps. We are doing fight recaps. The Twitter page is really growing in content. Super exciting. Follow Unwrapped Sports on Twitter as well. It's what brings Ethan and I and Monique and Dustin together. It's how we found each other. It's an absolutely crazy, amazing sports network. And make sure you like and subscribe to the Unwrapped Sports Network YouTube channel, and make sure you hit that little bell so you can get reminders for great shows like this one. All right, we are jumping right into our sponsors. Unwrapped Sports chiming in right away, too, with tuning in weekly, and they do. We love them. All right, let's get to our sponsors. We got rxhemp.com, guys. I say this every single week. If you're in your 30s like I am, but like to in the gym to pretend like you're 21, you probably should go to rxhemp.com and order some products. That's absolutely incredible stuff. Former UFC perennial contender Carlos Condit is an avid user of this stuff. So that it works. It works for muscle recovery, bone recovery. It's absolutely incredible. So check out rxhemp.com and use rxhemp-USN to get 10% off your entire order. That's rxhemp-USN to get 10% off your entire order. And then, as always, I'm not the gambler. Ethan is actually a gambler. We were talking about some of the fights and some of my picks and choices leading up into the show. Which we'll be talking about a little bit later, as we always do. But please visit mybookie.ag today and use promo code USN-100 for a 100% sign-up bonus. Guys, the fights this weekend, you're going to want to go visit mybookie.ag. There are some crazy fights on this Vegas card. And again, USN 100 for a 100% sign-up bonus. All right, we're going to jump into our headlines real quick, though. We got a comment again. Oh, yeah, Unwrapped. Welcome, Ethan, to the Fights Unwrapped Network. It is super exciting. We're happy to have Ethan here. I am always happy to be, I'm mentoring a young fight fan, if you will. So we're going to jump into our headlines real quick, like I said. And real quick, the first one we're going to talk about is a Sugar Sean O'Malley Munoz recap. For those who did not watch the fights this weekend, what the fuck happened? Seriously, I don't understand it. So for those who didn't watch, very boring first round. A lot of Munoz throwing leg kicks as he usually does, trying to get on the inside of the much taller man, Sugar Sean O'Malley. that is one way to do it. You throw the leg kicks, and then you dip and duck and get inside and start landing body punches and head strikes. He was unsuccessfully landing a lot of those leg kicks, but he was still throwing them. And it was a lot of Sugar Sean O'Malley just getting range, testing the range, throwing jabs, throwing feints, seeing what he could land. Rather boring first round. Second round starts. Sugar Sean O'Malley kind of raises the tempo up. He's starting to bring a lot of pressure. He's starting to land his 1-2 combos as he usually does. He's starting to land his kicks. He's putting stuff together, putting strikes together. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, an eye poke happens. Sugar Sean O'Malley, from the up-close many videos that I have seen, he got him. He got him in the eyes. It was total accident. He eye raked him, which is when, just so you know, is when you put your hand out and you accidentally go like this. It's typically known as a pretty moderate eye poke. Now, I don't know how it was because I didn't get the eye poke. But I would love, Ethan, to get your feelings on this, as you know, you know more than you think you know about fighting already, is what I would tell you, just based off of your picks and what you go off of. But as a newcomer to a new fight fan, what did you think about this? Did you think it was bullshit? Did you want to watch? Were you just angry that you wanted to watch more of the fight and didn't get to see a finish? Or do you think he got poked? Do you think he honestly got poked and it's not fair for us to judge that eye poke?
Quick question. Is Munoz related to LeBron or Marcus Smart in any way?
He is not, as far as I know, but that is a fair question.
Well, I was the one that experienced it, and I don't want to call him out, but like from all the angles, it looked like I have gotten worse playing pickup basketball. And had to continue playing. It didn't look that serious. From what you told me, he still had another 4 minutes, 30 seconds he could have used to open his eye to get better. It seemed like he just wanted to collect the check and move on, didn't really care.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of agree with. And then what I was telling Ethan before the show is that I have had many eye injuries. I've had many injuries, period, because I was way too small to be playing the sports I was playing at the age that I was playing them. Ethan, you'll notice that as you're on more shows, I make fun of my nice, solid 5'2" frame every time I get a chance. But I had tons of eye injuries growing up. I even had a detached cornea at one point. I've had several eye injuries in my life. And guess what heals really fast, Ethan? Your eye. It's one of the fastest healing injuries you can get is a cut cornea. It's literally sometimes within hours can heal itself. And you're right. He did have more time. You get 5 minutes to recover from an eye poke. He took 30 seconds, maybe a little bit more. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I was really angry at first because I wanted to see Sugar Sean O'Malley against a real opponent, which Pedro Munez is the real deal. He's really fucking good fighter. But to see him take 30 to 40 seconds to recover from an eye poke, and it didn't even look like he was trying to open his eyes and was screaming at the doctor, I can't open my eye, I can't open my eye, I can't open my eye. And it even looked like the doctor was saying, well, hold on, like, try. Try to open your eye. Like, give it a second and try. It was very disappointing. I'm not going to say he was faking it, but I would love to see him take more time. Take the time and actually wait and see if you can recover. You get that much time for a reason. I've seen people get worse eye pokes. In fact, we saw Jared Cannonier later in that fight card get an eye poke that resulted in his actual eyeball bleeding, and he kept fighting. So again, everyone's different. The severity of injuries is different for everybody, but that was super disappointing for a guy who's building a reputation in doing stuff like this in Pedro Munoz, who used to be one of my favorite watches. Whenever he was fighting, I watched because he's a little guy that puts on a hell of a show every time he's out there. So yeah, that was really disappointing, but it did happen. We'll see Sugar Sean O'Malley shortly, I'm sure. Dana's fast-tracked this kid, especially now that he's paying him a shit ton of money. He's got to fast-track him, and he really, really wants to build up that Cheeto Vera rematch. That needs to happen. It would be fucking awesome. It just needs to happen. So Dana White's going to do anything to make that fight happen. All right, we're moving on. Next headline. This just came out this morning, a little shocking too. Tony Kelly, the bigoted, sexist, racist piece of shit, booted off the UFC roster, which is shocking because he is not a bad fighter. And I'm sorry, I spelled his name wrong in the headline. It's Kelley, for those of you who actually care about that kind of shit. Tony Primetime Kelly is out of the UFC. Just came out. He was on a 2-fight win streak. He is 35 years old. Adrian Yanez whooped his ass last fight. And he was Barry chiming in. Thanks, Barry. Love you, man. Adrian Yanez whooped his ass. Tony Kelly is known as being the guy who was cornering somebody and said those pieces of shit cheating Brazilian fighters. They're just another piece of shit Brazilian, or something along those lines. Which, if I'm sure you're learning quickly, a large part of the fighting community is Brazil. It's a religion for them. They take it very seriously. So for him to just say any racist tone like that is just fucking wrong. And Adrian Yanez, a Brazilian, whooped his ass. Tony Kelly came out multiple times saying he didn't beat me that bad. Well, he knocked you out. Well, he didn't knock me out clean. Well, he knocked you out clean. So I, for one, am happy to see it, though it is odd because Dana White doesn't usually hold that against people. So I don't know what actually happened here. My thing is it's probably money. Tony Kelly probably wanted more money than he was getting paid. And Dana White didn't want to give him more money because he's not worth more money. So that's probably what actually happened. But I'm glad the UFC at least is making an appearance of getting a piece of shit off the roster like Tony Kelly. And I hope other sports are paying attention to this. It doesn't matter if the guy is actually good or if it's the actual reason. Pieces of shit. Playing a professional sport is a privilege. It's not something you just get to do because you're good at sports. It's a privilege. You get to do it. You earn to do it. So if you have those kinds of opinions, you voice them, and you don't keep them deep down inside in a dark place, you can go fuck off. So real quick, you don't have to talk about Tony Kelly because I doubt you know that much about him. But just I've always been interested because I feel like kind of on an island in this world sometimes, where I truly do think playing professional sports is a privilege. It's not something you get by being a good athlete. It's something that you get by being a good athlete and not fucking up. If you beat your wife, you don't deserve to be in professional sports. I'd love to get your opinion on this, Ethan. It happens in the UFC way too often, and we see a guy like Sean Strickland, who has done stuff like that, prospering in the UFC. Colby Covington, prospering in the UFC. And then you also see guys like Deshaun Watson, who's in the NFL, who still hasn't gotten fucking suspended. Ethan, what do you feel about this topic? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about, people like this being able to make millions of dollars doing a game?
See, for me, if I'm the league, you don't care about it unless it's going to affect your revenue. If someone can be an absolutely terrible person, do horrendous things, and they're still making you money, looking at how the league looks at it, they're going to still value the money. If it's going to be dead even or it's going to lose you money, odds are then they'll care about it because it'll make their public image look better. So, Ray Rice a couple of years ago suspended just 2 games. And I'm not sure how the UFC handles it, but from how you're describing, it doesn't sound that well. Unless they start writing it in for every single amount what you'll be suspended for. I don't think stuff like this will ever change unless people actually put pressure on the leagues.
Well, here's my thing about that, is I think people are putting pressure on the league. Yes, viewership. Let's take the NFL and the UFC is a great example of this, because viewership for the UFC is growing. It's not going down like it is for a lot of major sports. The NBA had not a very good year this year as far as viewership goes. The NFL, they move around the numbers and make it look like their viewership rise with streaming rates and different content that people are watching. They might not be watching the game live, but they're watching it after the fact, and which is, to me, saying our viewership is down, but we're going to make it look pretty. So I think it does affect viewership. That's my thing. If you let too many people get away with this nonsense, it will long-term affect it. And by saying it's okay to make money and also be racist and be not afraid to make racist comments, i.e. Colby Covington, or be homophobic or sexist, i.e. Sean Strickland, and openly make those comments, you should be punished or at least fined. Something should happen for violating character laws that all of these leagues and promotions have. They all have character bylaws in their contract. So, because they don't want the shield, as the NFL puts it, they don't want the octagon, as the UFC puts it, to be tarnished. So I know they're not actually getting Tony Kelly out because of the comments he made, but it is good to have that appearance, and it does excite me. So, anyway, we could have a whole fucking show about this topic. So we're going to move on. Like I said, we have a lot of headlines. Hopefully Monique chimes in soon. Next up, we have Jon Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, Jon Jones, Savage Jon Jones is back. The Jon Jones that told Daniel Cormier that he was going to shoot him is back. For a frame of reference, Ethan, because you might not understand what I'm referencing to. I don't know if you've seen the video, but Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones had a very public beef, one of the most public beefs in UFC history, where Jon Jones was on purpose acting like a nice guy because DC wants to be known as the UFC's nice guy. Even though he's a douchebag, but he wants to be known as the UFC nice guy. And so Jon Jones, to piss him off and get under his skin, was acting like the nice guy, and he kept mimicking whatever DC would do. And it's just, I just got to be, thank God, and be grateful for my opportunities in the UFC and stuff like that. Whereas Jon Jones is known for talking shit. That's what he's always done. And DC called him out in a live ESPN interview. And before it went to commercial break and was still live, Jon Jones said, hey, DC, you're a bitch. On live TV. And DC lost it. He's like, see, Jon, this is what I'm talking about. You're so fake, man. You're a fake person. Jon, next time I see you, I'm going to spit on you. And Jon Jones literally went, Daniel, if you spit on me, I will kill you. Where DC was like, you're not going to kill me, Jon. And I'm using my DC voice. And Jon Jones said, Daniel, I will literally, if you spit on me, I will literally get my gun and shoot you and you will die. That Jon Jones appears to be back. We have Izzy Adesanya and Francis Ngannou both calling him out, both great fighters, both calling him out as, you got to put respect on our name. We're some of the best fighters in the entire world, which they are. They are. But also saying that Jon Jones is washed, Jon Jones hasn't done anything, Jon Jones isn't this. Where simply Jon Jones told them they put some goddamn respect on his name. And until you go through the ring of fighters that I have gone through, until you have done what I have done, you need to keep my name out of your fucking mouth because I'm the greatest of all time, which is true. Jon Jones has the most ridiculous win streak in UFC history, went against, I think, 10 Hall of Famers and beat them all. It's absolutely incredible. Will never happen again what Jon Jones did. So Jon Jones is just telling these guys basically to fuck off and keep his name out of his mouth. And the funny thing is, Francis Ngannou's calling him out. A recent photo just came out of Francis Ngannou. He's fat. He's a fat man right now. So he might want to keep Jon Jones' name out of his mouth. He might want to listen here. Izzy Adesanya and Francis Ngannou honestly don't stand a chance against this man, Jon Jones. Jon Jones is an absolute savage. People forget he has some of the best ground game ever in UFC history and is one of the most tactical strikers in UFC history. Also has an 85-inch reach. So just so you know, Ethan, there was a 7-footer fighter once upon a time named Stefan Struve. Stefan Struve didn't even have an 85-inch reach. Jon Jones is terrifying. He's terrifying. Him at heavyweight is the scariest thing we have ever seen in UFC history. And this Savage Jon, motivated Jon, is good for the UFC. We have a comment coming in. Anthony, you're absolutely right. He's the GOAT. And then I got Anderson Silva and Jon Jones. Jon Jones is my 1A, and Anderson Silva is honestly my 1B. This is a guy that's beaten Quentin Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida, Shogun Rua twice. And I could go on and on and on about the guys he's beaten. It's absolutely insane. So as a newcomer, why don't you tell me, Ethan? I'm interested to have your opinion on Jon Jones as a heavyweight. I know you don't know much yet, but what do you feel about Jon Jones at heavyweight? What do you know about Jon Jones, and how do you feel he'll fare at the heavyweight division?
Well, if we're just looking at the current rankings, where do you think that he comes in at? If they had to does he have to fight his way back up to the top, or does he just get inserted at position 10, position 12, position 4?
So if I look for the pound for pound right now, Jon Jones, as soon as he gets active again, goes into the top 5 pound for pound immediately. That's how good he is. I know he hasn't fought in over 2 years at this point, but that's how good of a fighter he is. The GOAT automatically goes into the top 5 when he comes back. Honestly, in the heavyweight division right now, he would be I would put him at 3. Just off of fairness and everything, because Stipe Miocic deserves to be number 2, Cyril Gane deserves to be number 1, and Francis Ngannou is obviously the champ. So I would put him at number 3 instantly until he beats Stipe Miocic.
So I don't know UFC, so I'm not sure if this is right. But so if I'm at number 3, I have to go beat number 2 and number 1 before I get a champion shot, right?
No, you can. He can leapfrog all of them to go get a championship fight if he wants, and that might happen in December if he's willing to wait that long.
Personally, I don't think that's right, but I think that'll be an interesting fight to see because Francis is known as the dominant heavyweight from the little I know. Then you insert Jon Jones in there. I think Francis would be in for the fight of his life, and it really just depends on how good of shape Jones can still be in at that point in time. But if he's back to his prime shape, I think Jon Jones whoops him. But if he's not, Francis can probably take him.
So let me give you a little frame of reference for you. So Jon Jones used to fight at light heavyweight division. He never fought at the heavyweight division. He is stepping up to the minimum weight for the heavyweight division is 245. The maximum weight for title fights is 265. You can't weigh more than 265 for a heavyweight title fight. You can for other fights, but not for a heavy title fight. Jon Jones right now, so he's stepping up from 215 to 265. Jon Jones right now weighs 270, weighs 270 pounds. That's the last time he weighed in, and he's in shape. He's actually training to run marathons, so he's in good cardio shape. He's in fucking he is fucking shredded 270. His brother, just so you know, is Chandler Jones, Super Bowl champion. And Chandler Jones says Jon Jones is the greatest athlete in our family, and it's not even close.
So what I'm hearing is Francis is about to eat his words.
Francis Ngannou will probably get his ass whooped. Jon Jones is a black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and one of the best kickboxers we've ever seen in the sport. Francis Ngannou is a great fighter and a great striker, and it looks like he has improved wrestling. But it doesn't matter against a guy like Jon Jones who could just dominate you on top, especially since Jon Jones is heavier than him right now, which is just crazy to think about. He's heavier than big-ass Francis Ngannou, who uses his weight to win fights. He won't be able to do that for the first time ever against Jon Jones. So it is a crazy scenario to think about Jon Jones coming into the heavyweight division. It looks like more and more he's going to be fighting Stipe Miocic in September rather than waiting for December fight for Francis to maybe be ready, which I think is the right move. Stipe Miocic is known, just so you know, as the greatest heavyweight of all time. He has several title defenses and has gone through some of the best heavyweights we've ever seen. It's a very interesting fight, but Stipe Miocic has no ground game. So he's going to lose that fight pretty easily and probably get submitted within the first 2 rounds. So then he goes up against Francis and could easily go from September to December and fight for a belt because he said he wants 2 fights this year, which would be crazy. The UFC would make a ton of money because everyone's buying that fucking fight. Everyone is. It's like, I'll buy it 3 times just to watch it 3 times. That fight's fucking crazy. So Jon Jones, Savage Jon is back is the lesson here, which should absolutely scare the shit out of the heavyweight division. That's not just Jon Jones is coming to the heavyweight, but Savage, looking like young Jon Jones, is back. That gives me chills. That's how excited I am. All right, so we are moving on to our next topic. We're going to talk about the state of the middleweight division. Ethan, please feel free to chime in with any questions or opinions that you might have. So the middleweight division goes as such. I'm just going to call out the top 10 fighters. Izzy Adesanya obviously is the champ. We watched him defend his title this weekend rather boringly. I have opinions about that, but that is for a different stream. So we can talk about that then. But next, the number 1 contender is Robert Whittaker, and we have Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori, Derek Brunson at number 4. Paulo Costa is still somehow number 5, even though he hasn't fought in a long time. Alex Pereira at number 6, which he doesn't fucking deserve.
I have a question. How does he go from not ranked to 6? What got him that big of a jump?
So Alex Pereira fought Izzy in Glory Kickboxing years ago, 2016, and beat him.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening: is Izzy has no more people to fight. So what Dana White has done is more of a marketing campaign, because that's the UFC business model is different than every other fight promotion out there. They're not a promotional company; they're a marketing company. They market fights, they don't promote fights, which we could go into in a different stream, but it's a very big difference. Promoting fights is you're trying to amp up the fight. Marketing fights is you're marketing the fight, you're marketing the fighter, you're getting your name out there, you're putting it out on every fucking thing you can do, and you're creating a storyline around that fight. So what he's doing is creating this storyline that Alex Pereira is dominating the middleweight division and climbing amongst the ranks to get to Izzy. to get a chance at beating who we think is unbeatable, which is fucked up and wrong because there are other fighters that deserve it more than he does. But again, that's a different topic for a different day. So basically what's happening is he's been fast-tracked. So what Dana is doing is he's giving him favorable matchups for him for easy wins so that he can get a title fight quicker. So we watched him fight Sean Strickland this weekend, right?
Yeah.
So he fought Sean Strickland, who is a fighter who fights on his back foot because he generally, if you fight off your back foot as a striker, you can generate more momentum going forwards, thus generating more power. So that's how Sean Strickland fights, which is good and it works for against certain people like wrestlers who are trying to set up takedowns. Against people who are just known for throwing haymakers and loopy punches, it works because you land power strikes only. With a guy like Alex Pereira, who it doesn't work against, is kickboxers. Kickboxers stay on their toes. They don't stay on the heels. They're constantly moving in and out. And you watched it. Even though that fight ended quickly, you watched it. You could see Alex Pereira coming quickly, land 3 strikes, and before Sean Strickland could even get off one. And that's what happened. That's why it was a bad matchup. Alex Pereira before that has fought a bunch of nobodies. So that's how he gets up to number 6, is he's been artificially fast-tracked to that ranking so that to the public it looks like he deserves a title fight, which he doesn't.
So he gets that title fight and they advertise it as Adesanya's defeater finally gets his shot at the title. So when he eventually gets whooped, then they have to find the next guy. Right.
And the next guy's already in the division, which is what pisses me off. But we can talk about that later too. So Sean Strickland's number 7, Jack Hermansson's number 8, who again, Sean Strickland and Jack Hermansson just not very good. Just being honest, as an analyst, they're just not very good fighters. Darren Till has all the talent in the world, but one can't stay healthy and can't stop doing cocaine. Period. Like, the guy's his own worst enemy. He could be one of the best fighters in the division, of the middleweight division of all time. Could be a Hall of Famer. Just loves to party. Loves the party lifestyle. And then you have Andre Munez at number 10. So this is what we're talking about. The state of this division. This is weak. This is why I wanted to bring this up, because I'm going to piss a lot of people off who think this division is one of the best divisions in the UFC and say it is now the second worst division in all of UFC, next to the light heavyweight division, which is quickly gaining ground on the middleweight division. This middleweight division is bad. Jared Cannonier is a good fighter. He's not that good. He's just power striker. Marvin Vettori is a solid fighter, but he's not great at anything. He's just kind of good at everything. Derek Brunson is the epitome of overrated. Paulo Costa is not good. He's just not good. We've been told lies. Alex Pereira, we already talked about him. Sean Strickland, vastly overrated. Being a fight style and fighting on your heels worked 10 years ago. It doesn't work anymore. You're fighting against guys that have been fighting since they were fucking 3 years old. You got to be quick. You can't be slow in this fight game anymore. Jack Hermansson, again, overrated. Darren Till, his own worst enemy. Andre Munez, good. We'll see what happens with him. I love Andre Munez. And then there's a guy, Nazarene Amolov, at 13, who should be getting top 10 opponents. He's the guy that should have been fast-tracked. He's bigger than Izzy Adesanya, and he's a wrestler. He would dominate Izzy, but that's not what Dana wants. And I'm just getting really tired of people saying Izzy's got no one else to fight. He's got no one else to fight because the middleweight division is the worst it's been probably in the last decade. It's bad. It's really, really fucking bad. This is not Anderson Silva's middleweight division. It's just not. It's not the same level. It never will be the same level. And it's just disgusting that people are calling these wins good. Beating Jared Cannonier is not good. It's not a good win for Izzy. He's nowhere for a guy that claims that he's close to Jon Jones, who has beaten, like I said, 10 Hall of Famers. He's not even close. He's not even close. He's beaten one. He's beaten one Hall of Famer, and that's Anderson Silva, and that's 40-year-old Anderson Silva, not 29-year-old Anderson Silva, who was running through the division and having the most title defenses ever in the middleweight history. So I hate overrated fighters. I hate seeing this shit happen. I hate seeing divisions get destroyed because the UFC has made some very poor decisions on who should be fighting Izzy. One, if you really want to build the Alex Pereira fight against Izzy, you should have Alex Pereira fight Robert Whittaker. The only Hall of Famer in the division besides Izzy is Robert Whittaker, who arguably beat Izzy in his last fight. That's what should happen. This is nonsense what's happening. And it's just upsetting because the middleweight division used to be one of the greatest of all time. Now it's just bad. Do you have any other points to make on that? Any questions? It's just
I have a question for you. Dressius Duplessis had a very good fight this past weekend, and I was curious what your thoughts were on him, because from what I saw and what I was reading about him, he sounded like he could potentially move into that top 10 within the end of the year if he gets another fight or two.
Yeah, so Dressius Duplessis, the South African monster, as I like to call him, 6'1", 76-inch reach, fighting for the middleweight division. This guy's an absolute beast. This is a guy that I honestly think could beat Izzy. He's got a long way to go. This is the guy that probably should be getting fast-tracked, not the 35-year-old Alex Pereira, who's turning 36 this year. But the 28-year-old kickboxer who's just on an absolute tear has beat Trevin Giles, who was supposed to be the next one up. Just so you know, Trevin Giles was being marketed as this incredible prospect, and Duplessis whooped his fucking ass. It made him look like a bum, and he's not a bum. Trevin Giles is really good. And then we saw him absolutely annihilate Brad Tavares, who, again, is not a bum. Is really, really good. He could be in the top 10 by the end of the year. He does need one more fight probably to get there. He's not. The good news is he's not really injured and probably could fight as soon as September probably because he's not on medical suspension. So he honestly could fight next. If there was somebody that backed out in the middleweight division in the next couple of cards, he could step up. That's what I would like him to do. I love when guys do that. It gets their name out there. It promotes them. It makes Dana White put you in the rankings. If you take a fight on short notice, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Taking a fight on short notice, not having a fight camp is a big deal. It's really hard to do. So we need to pay attention. I love that you brought this guy up, because we need to pay attention. If this guy takes a fight on short notice or gets a fight in September, look out, because he's coming. He's coming for this division, and he could take it over. Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. I love the guy. He's an absolute beast. All right, we have our next topic, the pound-for-pound list. And we'll kind of breeze through this a little bit. So that we can start talking about the amazing Vegas card. Let me go here. Sorry, I'm pulling up the pound-for-pound list. All right, here we go. So right now, pound-for-pound, we have Kamaru Usman, Alexander Volkanovski, Izzy Adesanya, Charles do Bronx Olivier, Francis Ngannou, Dustin Poirier, which is just stupid. We have Aljamain Sterling, Max Holloway, Yuri Prochazka, who's one of my favorite fighters, Davison Figueroa, Jon Jones at number 11, who hasn't fought in 2 years, Stipe Miocic at 12, Peter Yan at 13, which is a joke. He should be much higher than that. Robert Whittaker at 14, Glover Teixeira at 15. The reason we're talking about this today is that this has gotten out of control. The pound for pound has always kind of been a sideshow, just so you know. It's always been who's the most. It's a popularity. A lot of popularity goes into it. And right now, Kamaru Usman is very popular. I want to pull something up right now. Kamaru Usman, just so everybody knows, and you know, is one of my favorite fighters. I've been fucking backing this guy since his first fight in the UFC as somebody to watch out. That this is the guy that's going to take over the welterweight division. So with that being said, I love Kamaru Usman, but he is undeserving of the pound for pound number one. He just is. The guy hasn't fought. His title defenses, I'm trying to pull them up. His title defenses are Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal, Colby Covington, and that's it. So he's fought two guys twice. Gilbert Burns was a great title defense, don't get me wrong. But if you fight the same guy twice, and you fight two guys twice, who you already beat, and you beat him again, that doesn't make you better. That doesn't make you higher in the pound for pound list. The fact that Alexander Volkanovski, who again is a guy I've been backing since he walked into the octagon. I love Alexander Volkanovski. But let's go through his title defenses, which are very impressive. But it's Max Holloway, Korean Zombie, which is not a good one. Korean Zombie's never really a title contender. Brian Ortega, who, okay, Brian Ortega's good, but he's not great. Max Holloway, and got the title from Max Holloway. Now, I will say this. Alexander Volkanovski has beaten Jose Aldo, Chad Mendes, Darren Elkins, Jeremy Kennedy. All really fucking good fighters on its way up to the championship. But again, not overly impressive title defenses. Beating Max Holloway 3 times is impressive. The second fight, he didn't win. I know he scored the win, but he didn't win. We can all agree on that. Alexander Volkanovski has finally said, I probably didn't win that fight, but I got the W, and I'm not going to give up the belt. This is the man I want to talk about, though. My favorite fighter in the entire UFC right now. Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. I want to go over his fight win streak right now. So he's been in the UFC, just so you know, he's been in the UFC for a long time. He's 32 years old. He's been in the UFC since he was like 22. He struggled at first to find which division he should be in. It happens sometimes. It's hard to be in the UFC. You're going up against the top talent in the world. But to go over his win streak, he beat Clay Guida, who's a Hall of Famer, Christo Giagos, Jim Miller, who's a Hall of Famer, David Temir, who's a monster, Nick Lentz, who's a monster, Jared Gordon, who's very good, Kevin Lee, in Kevin Lee's prime before he got carried away with cocaine. He absolutely annihilated Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. And the reason I want to bring this up is those are the same exact fighters that Khabib beat. Those are the same exact fighters when Khabib was reigning atop the entire UFC. Du Bronx has beaten every single one of them besides Conor McGregor. I'm tired of watching this champion get disrespected. I want people to realize who this man is and how he keeps annihilating people who say that he doesn't deserve to be champ. Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, and Justin Gaethje all said he's not a champion. And he went in there and he whooped all of their asses. He fucking climbed Dustin and standing rear naked chokehold him. That's unbelievable to do that to Dustin Poirier. He fucking made Justin Gaethje look like an absolute fool. This is a guy that's not to be fucked with. This is a guy that could easily beat Islam, the next guy who's supposed to be the next guy up. This is a guy that if he gets his Conor McGregor fight that he's asking for, will probably beat Conor McGregor. Duke Bronx is an absolute beast right now. He's my pound for pound number one. And in my opinion, it's not even close. He is on top of the UFC. Ethan, I know I just talked for a while and ranted. I probably should have put up my rant of the week there. But do you have any questions about that? Do you have opinions?
Yeah, I have a question for you. Why is there no title for the lightweight division?
Right now, so Duke Bronx technically weighed in overweight, so he doesn't officially have the title right now in his last fight. But that has some controversy to it. Somebody came in and adjusted the scale, and 5 people on the main card weighed in overweight at the same exact weight that he did. So he weighed in 0.5 pounds over, 0.5 of a pound over the lightweight limit, which is unacceptable in a title fight. It's acceptable in a non-title fight, but in a title fight, it's unacceptable. So that in itself is controversial. In fact, almost every fighter in the UFC says give him his belt back because that's fucking bullshit. Somebody tampered with the scale. And that's a fact. Somebody did tamper with the scale. But the UFC refuses to give him his title because he's not a fun champion. He's boring. He doesn't talk shit. He doesn't yell at people. He doesn't scream. He doesn't brag. He doesn't fucking put his hands down during a fight. He's just a really good fighter. But yeah, anything else? You got anything else for me on this?
No, I was just curious because you're talking about the person that's ranked number one. I don't see a belt above any lightweight. So
yeah, so he technically doesn't have the belt, but in everybody's MMA mind, everyone or anyone who's a diehard fight fan will tell you Duke Bronx is the lightweight champion. Okay, he might not be on paper, but he's the lightweight champion. All right, so that being said, we are done, and we get to talk about this fucking amazing card, which is just another amazing Vegas card, which hasn't happened in a long time. We're on a good string of them. It goes with the kind of July right now. This is International Fight Month, so July and the end of June have just been fucking incredible as far as cards go. So, real quick, as I do every week, and we're probably going to run a little bit over an hour, people, but as I do every week, I want to give some shout-outs on the prelim card. Because I have been asking for a long time, Ethan, for the UFC and Dana White. I have called Dana White out, assuming he watches our show every week. Because why wouldn't he? You know, I know we get a couple, maybe 100 viewers every week, but Dana White, fucking tune in. You might learn something. He has finally done what I've asked for and is promoting these young fighters and really getting them on these cards. So the first fight I want people to pay attention to really is, and Ethan brought this to my attention, which again tells me he knows more than he's letting on about fighting. Ronnie Lawrence versus Saidikov Kakurman. I said it perfectly earlier when we were talking, and now I can't say it. Saidikov. And this fight is just, you know, Ronnie Lawrence is a really good fighter. He's a little bit older, just to be honest. He's 30 years old and just getting his shot now, which is fine. You know, you get your shot when you get your shot. There are guys there's a guy right now in the UFC that's 35 years old and got his shot and is making a title run. So, who am I to judge? All I will say is Saidikov is an absolute monster. This guy beat Askar in HFC, which is a really good promotion. Askar is one of the top-ranked bantamweights right now. He absolutely annihilated Trevin Jones into a guillotine choke in round 3 of his latest fight in his UFC debut, and now he pulls Ronnie Lawrence. Ronnie Lawrence is also a really good fighter, fighting out of Nashville, Tennessee, but he's going to lose this fight. Saidikov is definitely going to win this fight, and I'm just going to call it. I think he KOs him in the second round. That's what I think happens. Saida Cub is somebody who is going to get a little bit of the fast track treatment for sure. He's a fun fighter. He talks a little bit of shit. He has a little bit of antics. He's absolutely a ball to watch. And it's just an absolute beast in the octagon. Good striking, great wrestling. I think this fight ends in a knockout. Ronnie Lawrence is a good fighter, but this is a guy that's going to make a title run in the next year or two. Well, let's just say by this time next year, Saida Cub will be in the top 10. I'm calling it right now. The guy's a beast. He's an absolute beast.
See, actually, I'm disagreeing with you on who I think wins this fight. Because I'm looking at the stats, and I'm seeing that Lawrence averages 9.15 takedowns a match, and he has 78% takedown accuracy compared to his opponent, who isn't necessarily a grappler, only gets 2.05 compared to the 9.15. I'm pretty sure the 9.15 is the most in the division, just because it seems like such an absurd number. And then looking at the strikes, although Lawrence's defense is a little bit less, 55 compared to 61% on the defensive side, he still lands 3.54 strikes per minute compared to the 2.46. So I'm just feeling, I think Lawrence can get more done, wear him down, get more takedowns, and just keep shooting on him to the point where I think he'll win by decision.
It's a fair opinion, and I would just say that Ronnie Lawrence has never, ever in his entire life faced somebody like Saida Cub. So the talent level that Saida Cub has already faced versus Ronnie Lawrence is kind of like this, to be honest with you. Ronnie Lawrence is a good fighter. He's gonna be a successful fighter in the UFC. Could easily make his way into the top 10. He's a good fighter. But what I'm telling you, and I'm telling everybody watching, this guy is gonna be in the top 10 by next year, if not competing for a championship. He is. You watch him. Yes, Ronnie Lawrence. I'll tell you right now, Ronnie Lawrence is the better wrestler. Ronnie Lawrence is I'm pretty sure is high-ranking NCAA wrestler in his college days. Those guys are fucking terrifying. Don't get me wrong. Saida Cub, though, he's going to land those leg kicks early and take away that wrestling from him, and he's not going to have anything left to do. That's why I think this ends in a knockout in the second round.
Just looking at the odds for that fight, it looks like Lawrence is the favorite, but not by much. Yeah,
it's like a pick'em, which usually happens in the first prelim fight because the UFC doesn't even know who's going to really win. They have no idea. You know, we could sit here and pick. These are two guys who don't have a UFC resume. UFC has a top flight talent. The only thing that Saida Cub has that Ronnie Lawrence doesn't is he's beaten a top-ranked UFC opponent. Granted, it was a couple years ago when he wasn't in the UFC. So that's the only thing he's got going for him. That's why I'm picking him in this fight. All right, we're moving on to the next prelim. I'm going to not skip over a fight because we have Kennedy Nchukwu is how you say it, I'm pretty sure. Another Nigerian fighter fighting against Carl Roberson, who is more of I don't want to say journeyman because he's 9-5, but he's been around for a long time, and not in the UFC, but he's been around in pro fighting for a long time. Kennedy Nchukwu is his nickname's the African Savage. He's a kickboxer. He's a long kickboxer with an 83-inch reach at light heavyweight, which is just fucking insane. I know he's coming off of 2 losses, and I know he's struggled since going on that 3-fight win streak in the UFC. But I think this is a little gimme fight because, you know, Carl Roberson has been struggling recently, coming off a loss against Khalil Roundtree, which is an overrated fighter. I'm going with Kennedy Nchukwu. I think he's going to win this fight. I think this is a guy, I know he's been struggling as of late, but this guy has all the talent in the world to get into that top 10 talks of the UFC in the light heavyweight division. The UFC also signed him with the intention of fast-tracking him. So this is one of those where Dana picks a gimme, and we just got to kind of ride with it. But just everyone's got to pay attention to this guy because he is really, really good. He struggled. I don't know why Dana did all this and then put him up against, Da Young Chung and then a wrestler, which is just, that's not how you promote a young striker. But pay attention because this guy is going to make some waves in this division. All right, next up, and I can't believe we're just on the prelims, Ethan. That's what blows my mind. Because these are fucking great fights.
From how I've been looking at them, they look that way too. I mean, the Kennedy-Carl fight, I'm not going to try and pronounce Kennedy's last name, is on sportsbooks, it's looked at as, like you said, a near pick'em for the other one, but I also have Kennedy. I think having that 83-inch reach is just absurd to the point where all he has to do is sit back, land his strikes, and he's able to move on with another win in his win column.
Yeah, and he needs to get back in the win column because if he gets back into the win column now, Dana White, if we just follow what he's done in the past, will continue to fast track him. If he doesn't win this fight, he'll be forgotten about and he'll be in Bellator by next year. That's what will happen. And he'll be dominating Bellator. And then the fringe Bellator fans will be like, he's so good, he could kill anybody in the UFC. Which is just another topic for a different day. One that Dustin can yell at me about later. Next up, we got maybe my favorite prelim, maybe my favorite fight in the entire card. We have David Oneima coming off of his win against Gabriel Benitez, who fight fans know is a beast, absolute beast. The guy is no joke. So we will see what happens here. And then he is pulling the great Garrett Armfield, who is high wrestling. Guy wrestled at Missouri State. He was one of the top-ranked wrestlers in the entire country when he wrestled there. I don't think he was an NCAA champion, but since coming into the UFC, since coming off of his college wrestling, has hardly lost. It's funny, one of his losses was against Ronnie Lawrence. That was in 2019. But has hardly lost. He's on a roll here. He has 4 rear naked chokes, which is just crazy. So this is going to be a tough fight for Oneima, who is more of your striker, your classic striker. Yes, he has a couple of wins by submission. I'll tell you, so does Conor McGregor, who is a high-level black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but is not a grappler. He's just not. Doesn't matter what you say to me about his black belt. He's not a grappler. He's a striker. Oneima is the same thing. So this is going to be a tough fight for me to pick just because I've watched a ton of Oneima fights, and my heart is in this one. But if I'm picking with my head, I'm picking Armfield, wrestler, high-flight wrestler, highly ranked NCAA wrestler, which is not easy to do. That means he's just I don't know if you're aware of this, Ethan. If you're a high-ranked NCAA wrestler, you're one of the best wrestlers in the entire world. I think this fight goes to the ground. I think it goes to the ground early, and I think we're going to see Armfield win by decision.
You see, obviously, that would be the popular pick for you because I know you like to pick underdogs. I've seen in the chat, everyone likes their underdog. I just don't see it from everything that I've been reading and just looking at the odds purely. I don't know how you could pick against the highest favorite on the card, prelim or main.
So let me. This is where I can school you a little bit on this, right? I can teach you. David Oneima and Garrett Armfield don't have UFC fights. So sometimes the odd makers in Vegas get a little bit outrageous and they make crazy odds. Daniel Oneima is favored. He is definitely favored. People love him. I love him. The guy's an absolute monster. Even if he loses this fight, he's going to be in one of the best fighters in the division in the next 2 to 3 years. It's just a fact. He will be. He's that skilled. But when you got a striker like this going up against a wrestler like that, listen, I hope I'm wrong because, like I said, I love David Oneima. I am a huge fan, and I hope I'm wrong. I just don't go against wrestlers this early in their career. Period. It's just not within me. I can't do it because they haven't. Whereas David Oneima looks really good and Garrett Armfield looks really good, wrestlers will beat a striker in early career 9 times out of 10, unless Oneima is everything we've been promised and is a guy that will be contending by the end of next year, which I don't know. I hope he is because it will be good for the sport, good for the UFC. But you got to at least prove that to me first. I'm riding with Oneima even though I'm not picking him. He's one of the guys I'm picking to be one of the top. I think he'll be eventually in the P4P rankings at some point in his career. So that's how much I love the guy. But this early in his career, fighting a wrestler that high of a talent, I don't know, man. I'm going to go with the wrestler.
Sounds good.
And then really the last, we'll go into Cody Brundage and Tresean Gore. This is really exciting. Tresean Gore is one of the Ultimate Fighters. Really, really good Ultimate Fighter. Dana White likes the guy. He's going to get more and more opportunities. He's an absolute power striker. The guy's just fun to watch, and he pulls against Cody Brundage, who is an absolute monster within his own right. I am, though, picking Tresean Gore. I think he's going to make quick work of this fight. I think we might see an exciting knockout in the first round. That's just my personal opinion.
I actually saw something when I was doing some research about this prelim. It said that this fight will not last more than 2 rounds. So if you can find it under 2.5, then you're making easy money. Gore is going to win by knockout unless there's no way it goes the distance from how it seems. So
yeah, and I'll be honest, Cody Brundage to me is a very overrated fighter. I don't think he has the talent or the skill that we've been promised. No, he's the husband of I forget who it is, but a very high-ranked UFC fighter. But I don't give a shit about that. If you're not good, you're not good. It's just that simple. All right. Last fight in the prelims. The prelim headliner is Ayman Zabi versus Ricky Trucios, another beast. This guy reminds me, watching him in The Ultimate Fighter, reminds me of, God, why can't I think right now? Hold on, give me 1 second. I need to be able to say this name. Reminds me of Tony Ferguson. God, I can't believe I couldn't say that. He's an absolute unicorn. The guy is untraditional. If there was a definition of a picture of untraditional fighter, maybe him or Yuri Prohaska would be next to it. Their picture. This guy is the things that he does that we saw him do in The Ultimate Fighter. Is just weird that it works. He can fight. He can take the fight to the ground. He's a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he can also strike with you too. He fights out of Sacramento, California, and he pulls Ayman Zabi, who is again another beast in his own right. I know he's coming off a victory against Draco Rodriguez. I'm going to be honest with you. Drucius wins this fight for me. 9 times out of 10, he wins this fight for me. Ami Zabi is a guy that can knock you out at any given time. But Drucius is just a different level. This is a guy that another guy that we'll be talking about top 15 probably next year and making his way to top 10 after that. The guy's a beast. He's an absolute beast. So I don't know how he could win by decision. He could tap him out. But I am probably going to say this fight goes to decision. Ricky Drucius gets it done. Do you have anything on this fight from the bettor's point of view?
Seems like Drucius should just be an easy win. It looks like, from what I've read from other bettors, he seems like a good pick to throw on a parlay. Safe, should win. Not best odds for a straight unless you're one of the people that has the millions and millions of dollars. But I'm taking a wild guess that you have all that money in the world. You're not going to Fights Unwrapped for betting advice. You're going to Bets Unwrapped.
That's very true because we tend to pick with our hearts on this. We try not to, but we do because we love fights and we absolutely love the sport. All right, now we're on to the main card, and we start off the fight with bullshit. We have it's a good card, but we started off with bullshit. We have Michael Johnson, who we all know is the most inconsistent fighter in UFC history. This is a guy that will absolutely destroy Atrim Lobov and then lose to Josh Emmett. A guy that will fight Khabib Nurmagomedov for the championship and get absolutely destroyed because it's Khabib, but also knock out Dustin Poirier. Michael Page is the definition of we got Jonathan Gray calling us casuals, which is a little just not true, but whatever. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions. Michael Page is getting a little Dana White treatment. He's giving him some fights that will get him promoted, getting him some fights that will get him back into bigger names, because Michael Page is a fucking show to watch. He can knock you out at any given moment. He is fun to watch. I got Michael Page winning this fight. Jimmy Malarkey's just not that good. Just to be honest with everybody, he's just not that good. Lost to Jalen Turner. Yes, he beat Devonta Smith and Kamal Worthy. But he also lost to Faris Saim and Brad Riddell, which is I'm not a believer in Malarkey, never have been. But I think Michael Page, we've seen maybe a second, maybe a third round knockout in this.
See, I think Malarkey KOs him by the third round.
Really? I
think that if he wants to end up being that guy for White, then if Dana wants him to be pushed, he's going to have to win these fights. If you're the favorite and you can't afford to lose to underdogs, you can't afford to lose in general if you want to be a Dana guy, just from everything I've seen and heard about the guy. So I think Malarkey is going to...
Here's what I'll tell you, though, is Michael Page is already a Dana guy.
I thought he was going up against Michael Johnson.
Michael Johnson, sorry. Michael Johnson is an absolute Dana guy already. Dana is trying to get him back to big-name fights because he sells. Putting his name on a card, every fight fan in the world will buy that because his name's on a card. But he's got to get some wins under his belt. Now, Malarkey could win. Maybe I'm just a hater, but I'm just not a believer in the guy. And Michael Page has got that he can touch you and you'll go to sleep kind of power. So we are moving on to the next. We got Cynthia Cavallio versus Nina Nunes. This is hard for me to pick. Nunes is coming off of two difficult losses against Tatiana Suarez and Mackenzie Dern. Both of those women are absolute monsters. So it's one of those like, yes, you lost, but I can't really count it against you because those are really good fighters. And Cynthia Cavallio is coming off against losses against Andrea Lee, Jessica Andrade, and Caitlin Chikake, which again are all really good fighters. So this one is definitely difficult for me to pick. I'm going to go with Nina Nunes just because, and the person who called us casuals before might call us casuals again, just because it feels like the right pick. But if you talk to any real fight fans, sometimes going with your gut in fighting is the absolute right thing to do. Losing to Mackenzie Dern in an armbar in the first round can happen to anybody. Can absolutely happen to anybody. I think that Nina Nunes absolutely knows and is fighting with a chip on her shoulder. And I think she wins this fight. I think she gets back in there, wins this fight, and gets back into contention. What do you think from the betting perspective? How do you see this fight happening?
I'm not sure who wins, but I think whoever does win, it's not lasting the full time. I think it ends by submission or KO. I just don't see this ending by decision.
It could. I will say this, if it ends by submission or KO, it would be because Cynthia caught her. That was probably, if that ends, if this doesn't go to decision, it's because Cynthia ended the fight and caught her. And she could have even been that she was losing the fight the entire time, but caught her on the jaw or caught her in a bad position and got a submission. Nina Nunes is a decision warrior. She's really, really good at winning decision fights and taking you the distance and putting you in those deep waters. So that's why I'm picking Nina Nunes, because she is very good at that. All right, we are moving on. We got Jared Andrea versus Chase Sherman. And if anybody has watched this show before, they all know how I feel against Chase Sherman. I'm not a fan. I don't like him. I think he is in the UFC to lose at this point. I think he's a guy that Dana likes because he'll take any fight. And Dana likes people who will take any fight. Now, that being said, I think these guys are both fighting for a job. If you look at their two records, that would indicate it. Chase Sherman is coming off losses against Andrea Arlovski, Parker Porter, Jake Collier, and got absolutely annihilated by one of my favorite fighters in the heavyweight division because he's a former sumo wrestler, which is awesome. You don't see that in the UFC that often. Alexander Romanoff absolutely annihilated him, which was a chance for him to beat an up-and-comer. And he draws Jared Andrea, who's coming off losses against hold on, let me reload this. Here we go. Alexander Romanoff, which again, absolute monster. Andrei Arlovski and Alexei Oleinik. I have Andrea in this fight. He is the slightly better fighter. I would never tell you that Vandera is going to compete for a championship, but he is better and is able to beat Chase Sherman. Dana White, again, like I said, loves Chase Sherman because he doesn't say no. And Dana likes guys that don't say no, period. But I think he will lose this fight. Jared's just slightly better, That being said, though, Chase Sherman's got power. He does. He has a powerful punch, and he can put this fight at an end in a knockout. But I think Jared gets it done. I don't really know how, but I think he does win this fight. Period. What do you think from the betting perspective?
I think Vandera should win this with ease. I think he has all the right advantages with his body type and his fighting style over Sherman. And for Vandera, if he loses, I'm not sure if Dana keeps him around for much longer. I think this is his time to show that you can mop up against those that are worse than you. Because if he can't, there's no reason to keep him in, and there's no reason to keep paying him the big bucks.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, and I honestly think this is Chase Sherman's last straw. I think he's like, yes, you say no, you don't say no, but you can only not say no for so long. You can't go on a 9-fight losing streak in the UFC. It's just not allowed. Like, we're the best of the best. And Dana might say, you know what? I love you, Chase. Thank you for all of your service to our company, but go fight in Bellator and get some W's. Like, you could win in Bellator. You're not going to win against these monsters in the heavyweight division. Okay, coming up, we actually have a great fight. We have Douglas Silva de Andrade, who is a journeyman. He's 37 years old, 28-4, been in the UFC for a pretty long time, since 2015. Been up and down. He's beaten the likes of Chita Vera, lost against Peter Yan and early Peter Yan. And he's coming off of 2 victories, going up against Nurmagomedov, Saeed Nurmagomedov, 15-2. I'm going to go ahead and just pick the fight. Nurmagomedov is going to win because he's related to Khabib, period. And he trains with Khabib, and Khabib will be at his corner. And Khabib doesn't lose as a coach, just like he didn't lose as a fighter. He's one of the best coaches in the world. These Dagestani fighters are absolute beasts. They all train in sambo, which is a style of fighting that incorporates Brazilian jiu-jitsu and wrestling. They're absolute monsters. He puts pressure on just like Khabib does, just like everybody Khabib trains does. He puts that pressure on. He takes it down, and he puts you out, or he rides you to a decision, to a unanimous decision. I like Douglas Silva de Andrade. I really do. I think he's a fun fighter to watch. He's a journeyman. He's been around since, like I said, 2015, but he does not stand a chance in this fight. Nurmagomedov's going to absolutely put it on him and absolutely annihilate him. I think we see a submission in the 3rd round, I'm going to say. What do you think, Ethan?
You know, I gotta agree with you that he wins, but I'm looking at the total rounds. Right now, they're projecting it at 2.5, and they're liking the under. The under is heavily boosted. So I think that we possibly see a submission even in the 1st, if you want to go for that type of thing. But
I would tell you right now, if I was a betting man, I'd bet on sorry, my weird notice just came up on my computer that scared me, but everything's fine. If I was a betting man, I'd bet the under on that. I would bet that he gets the victory by submission in the 1st round. That's what I would bet on. Me knowing the monster that de Andrade is, thinks that he could last until the 3rd round. Now, I think he will be dominated until the 3rd round, but I think he just out of his pure heart will go until the 3rd. Okay, we're moving on. Next up, we got Chao Borja versus Armin. I'm not even Soya. I'm not even gonna try. I'm sorry, guys. Everyone can yell at me in the comment section. That's fine. So let me get my computer right. It's acting all weird. We got 2 younger guys in their young career going up against each other. And this is, again, something I've been asking the UFC to do for a long time. We have 2 absolute monsters, 2 beasts. This is going to be the fight of the night. These guys are both going to bank in a bonus. That's what's going to happen. And I don't think it goes to distance, just to be honest with you. That these guys are going to fight. They're going to stand, and they're going to throw. I am personally – oh, God, this is so hard for me, Ethan. I love both guys. They're both really good. They both come from the Contender Series, which makes it even more difficult to pick because the contenders coming out of the Contender Series have been so successful in the UFC, and it's so hard to pick when they're both in it. I'm going to go with Chow. I'm going to go with the Brazilian. Both of these guys are really good strikers. What I will say about the Brazilian, though, is he has that black belt. He has that Brazilian jiu-jitsu to fall back on. And I'm not just saying that because he's Brazilian. He actually does have really high-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu that he more so uses to defend takedowns. But I think if this fight gets too out of hand with the striking, he might go to the ground and he wins that way. That being said, though, Arman is a monster, and if Chow puts himself in bad positions on the feet, he's going to sleep. So I don't think I actually made a pick there, and I don't think I'm actually going to make a pick, Ethan. But because both of these guys are absolute monsters. And I just can't wait for this fight. It's going to be amazing. What do you think, Ethan?
I'm looking at it. I'm saying I think Petrosyan has the better power. The only question is, can both of these people last their respective rounds? And if they're not able to, then just going to be can Barajo get Petrosyan in a hold and make him tap? Because that's the only way that this fight doesn't go to distance in Chow's favor.
That's absolutely right. I agree with you. Sorry, my phone is dying, so I have to grab my charger, and I'm going to set up somewhere else. So bear with me 1 second as I do this. I apologize to everybody as our show has gone very long. All right, I'm back. All right, so next up, we have a fight we've been waiting for that's been scheduled and rescheduled several times. We have RDA versus Raphael Physio, two of my favorite fighters of all time. I am so excited for this fight, Ethan. I cannot wait. RDA is RDA. He's a Hall of Famer. He's somehow still doing it at the age of 37. He's still getting it done. His last fight against Renato Marcano was absolutely awesome. He absolutely destroyed my Philadelphia brethren. Paul Felder absolutely annihilated him. Well, didn't absolutely annihilate him. I should retract that statement real quick. In a crazy fight that they both took on short notice, he beat Paul Felder. And that is, he's coming back to the division that he belongs in. So he is back in the lightweight division, his home. But he pulls Fiziev, who I don't know, Ethan, if you've watched Fiziev before. This is a guy, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, Izzy. Sorry, Alex Pereira. Probably the highest level kickboxing in the entire UFC. The guy dodges kicks like nothing I've ever seen before. He ducks them. He actually bends back out of the way of them every single time and then counters with a leg kick. Every single time. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. He's 11-1 right now. He's coming off of a very impressive victory against Brad Riddell. Beat Bobby Green, beat Renato Marcano, beat Mark Diakese. All really, really good victories. As much as I love RDA, I'm picking Fiziev. Fiziev's on his way to. There's this movement, this youth movement happening right now in the lightweight division, and Fiziev is one of those guys. That we're going to start seeing Poirier, Gaethje, some of these older guys get phased out of the lightweight division, just to be honest with you. I've already said several times that I don't think Gaethje and Poirier, maybe Poirier is, but I don't think Gaethje's in the top 5 by the end of 2023. I just don't. I don't even know if he's still in the UFC. He might retire. But I don't think he is. He either changes divisions or he's not in the top 5 in the lightweight division. This division is already scary and about to get scarier. The people coming up in this division, Raphael Physio is one of them, are the guys that have been fighting since they were 3 years old and are now in the UFC. Just to name a couple of them real quick, Arman Saryukin is one of them. You have Jalen Turner coming up, Ismagulov coming up, and then you have Islam, who's already in the top 5, Garmont, who's already in the top 10. Those guys are absolute beasts, and Fiziev might be better than all of them. So I love you, RDA, and I'll give you a decision on this. One, because you have a fucking, I know Anthony Johnson calls himself the Lionheart. RDA's heart is absolutely unreal. He took shots from Paul Felder that would have put anybody else out because Paul Felder is an absolute beast. So I think this goes to decision. Could I see an early knockout? Could I see a knockout by Fiziev in this fight? Absolutely, I could. I will never, ever count him out for a knockout. The guy's just crazy. His wheel kick against Brad Riddell was one of the craziest fucking knockouts I've ever seen. So I got Fiziev winning this fight, and I'm going to give RDA the benefit of the doubt and say it goes to decision. Ethan, how do you feel about the last fight of the night, the headliner of the Vegas card?
I think it has to go to the distance. I don't think that they'd allow this specific main event after they put together what could be the best prelim card this entire year from everything that you said, from everything that I've read from experts. I don't think they let this go anywhere besides all the way. I think that these two are going to really buckle down, swing their hardest, but I think that truthfully, we're going to see this go the distance and Fiziev gets the win by decision.
Yeah, I do too. And I think, to be honest with you, I think it's a unanimous decision. I think we see a bunch of 10-9 rounds. You might even see a judge score one of them 10-8 just because judges are the fucking worst. Just to be honest with you, they're so bad. But we're going to see, because this is a 5-rounder, we'll probably see a bunch of 10-9 rounds. I think RDA pulls maybe 1 round, maybe 2 rounds away from Fiziev. But I think Fiziev at this point in RDA's career is just going to annihilate him. I think this is a guy that Fiziev could have beat when RDA was the lightweight division. Like, I really do. So that being said, that is the wrap of our card, of our show. Looking into our next week, July 16th. I unfortunately will be away for work, but Monique and Dustin and maybe Ethan will be holding it down without me. We have the Ortega, Yair Rodriguez. Guys, it's International Fight Week. We got fights every fucking weekend, and we got good ones. Jing Lang's also on that fight. Silakuev is on that fight. Schnell's on that fight. So make sure you guys tune in. You even got Ricky Simone on the prelims. Check that out. And my own Bill Algio on the prelims, who lives 15 minutes away from me. Just a fun fact. So, guys, make sure you tune in for next week. It's going to be another fucking fun Vegas card to talk about. So tune in, check it out, and we'll see you all next week. Happy Fight Week, everybody.